Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. So we have the Phixero 7-port 3.2 version USB hub. Anyways, it's powered, but it doesn't come with a power supply. One of the downsides. But hey, it's $44.99. So you are going to need a 3 amp power supply. This is something we found out on our little first look video that of course we didn't get one in the box, so it's kind of like, But of course they do tell you need one anyway, so guess what? No power supply with it. But you will, trust me, need it if you want to plug a bunch of junk in. Okay? So, I've got plugged into this my SD/micro SD card reader. I've got my Western Digital, my Passport NVMe Type-C to Type-C drive, which is actually going through a converter to Type A. My microphone, as well as the white cable is for continuity camera, which is currently up and running on my Mac just to sit there and go, "Hi, I'm here!" And then we have 2 empty slots, and of course we have my laser printer that's plugged into the end port. Now, if you have a Mac, you know you have a little application called System Information. And so this is not a Thunderbolt device, so even if you go Type-C to Type-C to the computer, which is just fine and dandy, do that if you wish, it's still going to not be a Thunderbolt registry. It's under USB in your program when you launch the app. So it'll just be under USB. So it's a 3.2 hub, but the Mac in itself, or the M1, the M2, these are 3.1 buses, not 3.2 buses. So there's a difference there, especially when it comes to that little extra speed edge, okay? You're gonna get a little bit more speed out of 3.2, but unfortunately, we don't have a 3.2 bus on our Mac. It's only 3.1, so keep that in mind on your M1 and your M2. Now, this thing is compatible with Macs, with Windows computers, PlayStation, Xbox. Doesn't matter if it's a laptop or a desktop. It's just plug it in and away you go. Now, it does come with a USB-C to A adapter, so in case you don't have a USB-C port, or you currently don't have one available because it's been taken up by 2 other drives like I've done now, yeah, you use a converter and away you go. Plug in your Type A port and you're off to the races. Now, 2 things you need to know, because I know these. I don't know of other devices, but I do know these. When it comes to a USB interface, like the Focusrite or a Steinberg or what have you, whatever you're using, USB interfaces need to go direct to the back of the computer, or they don't seem to want to function correctly, okay? And the same as your Apple SuperDrive burner, or even if you have a third-party USB compatible burner on your Mac or on your PC, these have to go direct. They don't like to work through hubs. I've done a lot of experimenting over the last couple of years with that sort of thing, and yep, no matter what you do, it ain't happening, baby. They don't want to work correctly, or at all, in fact. The SuperDrive won't even suck in the CD. It's like, no, I need more, and you can't give it to me, so too bad. But anyways, there you go on that one. However, you can plug in a bunch of other junk. Okay, so I've got my card reader, I've got my NVMe, I've got my mic, I've got my cable for my continuity camera for my iPhone because I have a Mac, so we get continuity camera access on a lot of our Macs. Nothing in these 2 slots, but I can fill them up too. And of course, the printer. Now, in your profile thing for under USB, you can check and see what device is getting how much power available and what it's actually drawing. So my card reader, for example, it's getting 900 milliamps out of this, and it's drawing 896. My Passport drive, same numbers, gets 9, takes 896. Now, thing is, we're going through a converter, and because of that, it thinks it's a Type A device, and it's not giving us the speeds as if it was on a Type-C bus. So, and that kind of makes a huge difference. Like, you're getting about half the speed. I'm getting about 360s to 380-ish read and writes with being plugged in Type-C to Type A conversion. That's what I'm getting out of that my Passport Western Digital NVMe, which is only rated for 1050 anyways on a good day, and it never actually sees that speed, but whatever. Even Type-C to Type-C, it doesn't see that speed. It sees like, you know, just under 800 read and write direct to a Type-C port, but through the hub, for two main reasons, we are losing speed. Conversion, and it's, even though it's a 3.2 hub, it's hooked into a 3.1 bus, which is just a little bit tiny slower. Okay, anyhow, so then of course we have the main hub itself, which current available, well, nothing, because it's not getting any, and it's not drawing any from the Mac anyway. It's got its own power source, so it's good to go. And I highly recommend that when you have any kind of a powered hub setup, I don't care what it is, make sure you have an external power supply on, because otherwise you're going to be overdrawing very quickly with that hub from your main built-in bus. There's a reason why they're powered, because you need it to run devices. Otherwise you can actually blow your internal bus on your computer if you don't have the power supply. Now, I already have the power supply here, which is 3 amps, which is what this requires. Do not pay attention to the Amazon write-up, and I'll tell you why. Is because they are not talking about the hub that's in front of your face. They're talking about one of their other hubs, and somebody dropped the ball when they did that write-up on Amazon for the store. So rest assured, the instructions will actually tell you these are all the hubs we make, and these are all the amperage levels in which they require. Okay, now everything uses 5 volts, which is fine, but they have different amperage requirements, and at least 2 of their hubs, if I remember correctly, this one and one other one, definitely must have a minimum of a 3 amp power supply, okay, which is what I have, and so I'm good to go. And this is just like a cheap Chinese Apple knockoff power supply. I didn't pay a whole lot for it on Amazon, and it came with a really freaking long cable and a heavy duty one at that. And that's what I used on my QuizLab hub before my camera decided to take it out. So yeah, cheap webcams, not a good idea. But I'm using the same power supply to power this, and it's perfectly fine. I can still fill up those other 2 ports to a certain point. I did a little experiment by adding this puppy into the mix. It didn't exactly go great. I had to restart my computer and unplug and reset things, because that was a little bit too much draw. This particular drive in itself, this is a Kingston drive. I'm just pulling it out of the case here. And this is one of those, you know, laptop format sized SSDs. And it's a real pain in the neck to get it out of there. Jeepers. I never usually have this much problem. There. Oh, almost had it. Okay, there we go. Okay. Now, the amperage draw on this little puppy, this is why I pick on you guys so much about, hey, powered systems, hello. And this is why things run hot and slow too, not just the bus. This sucker wants 1 amp just to itself. And even though I can get it to mount, what I found was as soon as I got it to mount, I was fine as long as I didn't plug in my iPhone as a continuity camera. As soon as I did that, things broke a little weird on me, and so I had to reboot the computer and reset a couple of plugs to put everything back online. So you can actually overdraw. So I'm kind of really pushing my luck as it is, but I'm pushing it enough that if it's USB sticks I put in, regardless of what the numbers say on the screen, it doesn't seem to be an issue. It's when I went to plug in this Kingston external drive here, Type A direct, and tried the continuity camera, things went a little weird. So I think I ended what was left of my power supply for power to my devices. Now my laser printer only chews up like 2 milliamps. It's like nothing, right? And remember, we're not drawing any voltage or amperage from our Mac. We're taking all that voltage and amperage from that 3 amp power supply. So we're just using data lines with the Mac. But even my my microphone, it requires 100 and it gets 500 to it. My iPhone is a 500 by 500, so it gets and takes 500. My printer gets 500, but it only uses 2 milliamps, which is nothing. Okay. course, my passport drive, even though it's on a Type C to Type A conversion, it's actually it gets 900 and it requires 896. Same as my reader, it gets 9, requires 896. Even though there's no card in there, it's an active device regardless. So, you know, you can find out how much everything's chewing here. So, but either way, the other thing I wanted to point out, when you're using a Type C device with an adapter like this to convert it, you're fine getting your milliamps and stuff. That's not a big deal. The thing that's a big deal is these become polarity dependent, either in the data or in the voltage and data combined. I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but what I can tell you is simply this. If you plug in these kind of devices, like this is an NVMe drive, this is my card reader, okay? If you flip the cable, whenever you put the cable in, do a check, like a speed test, right? Use your whatever program. Now, if you're experiencing really super scary slow speeds, and or hearing a noise out of your computer that's normally not there when you're running that device, yeah, you gotta unplug it and flip the cable, because that's where your problem is. And that's where I found out about even the NVMe, is I had to flip the cable around because I was getting like 32 megabits per second and some noise out of my speakers, and I'm like, what is going on here? Like, this drive runs like almost 800 megabits per second direct to my Type C port. What's happening, right? So I unplugged it from the adapter and flipped it and put it back in, and everything's peachy cream. Now, the speed, though, is something you're going to take another hit on because of the conversion process. You're downstepping, right? And so you're only going to see like 360s roughly read and write on your NVMe. Your card reader is going to run a little bit slower than normal, okay, depending on the card that you put in, depends on the speed. You're going to see a cutback, obviously. You're going to lose about half of your horsepower basically on that. But otherwise, yeah, even hooking in something like this direct, you're not going to see full power potential. It's going to be a little slower, but not drastically because it is Type A natively. But either way, you will get a speed hit from plugging direct into a computer, which is something that is an acceptable thing when using hubs, because you're not getting the full out potential of everything, okay? But it is very critical that you do have that 3 amp power supply. They talk about a 2 amp on the write up. That is for a different hub of theirs. They have 4 at least in the lineup. The instructions do show you all 4, including this one, and this one specifies minimum of a 3 amp power supply. And of course it has to be a Type C connection. It doesn't matter if it's Type A coming out of it, as long as it's Type C going to it and it has the required amperage, because the voltage is the same. Voltage between Type C, Type A, Thunderbolt, it's all 5 volts is what you get out. And then your device takes what it needs for voltage, okay? But you need that amperage, right? Now you can use a 4 or 5 amp power supply. Would it be a greater benefit to you? Well, it's definitely going to be more stable. Whether or not it's going to be a benefit, though, that I don't know. I can't say for sure. What's got me a little interested lately is I've always been under the assumption for years that Type A ports never give us more than 500 milliamps, because I've never seen a draw higher than that or an availability higher than that until recently with the newer Macs. You know, depending on the device that's plugged in, you know, it can provide 900 milliamps out of Type A. Now, Type C and Thunderbolt have always been 900 milliamps no matter what, and they're probably going to stay that way for some time to come. But anyhow, because of the fact this is a 3.2, your Mac is a 3.1, you're not going to get the advancement of the speed edge of 3.2. Because the Macs are only 3.1, even though I think it's a 3.1 Gen 2 if I remember. But this is 3.2 period Gen 2, and so you're not going to see the 3.2 Gen 2 speeds on a 3.1 plug-in bus. Now, even if you plug in Type C to Type C, or in my case, I go to my Type C cable at the other end and I go direct into my Thunderbolt port, I'm really not seeing that advantage because, again, the main USB system is only 3.1 in the Mac. So anyways, that's kind of where we want to clear the woods on that one. Now, the cable that comes with this to go to your computer is a Type-C to Type-C. It does have an adapter with it that's included, which is a Type-C to Type-A, which is, I'm using a Type-A port for this hub because I wanted to free up my 2 Thunderbolt ports for my other drives that I do need to run full bore all the time. Well, as full bore as it gets for not being powered units, but hey, we've not even seen a powered external NVMe drive yet. Thunderbolt, yes, but not on regular Type-C stuff. So anyway, we need what we can get. However, in total though, I've been torturing this thing. It's been working fantastic for me otherwise, but there is an upper limit to what you plug in, right? Obviously, I'm totally safe here with everything, and I can even put 2 USB sticks in. I have no more interference whatsoever. But if I plug this in to one of those 2 empty ports, that's when I found out I had a little bit of an issue. Okay, I was really overdrawing the system. So, yeah, it was fun. So anyway, you plug in what you're going to plug in, you know. And if you don't need something plugged in, well, don't plug it in. I'm just kind of, this is where I'm at with this one. I need all this stuff in all the time anyway, so it's got to stay connected. So I think for what we have here, for what it's capable of, it works on Macs and PCs and PlayStations and Xboxes, blah, 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 blah. It is a 3.2 system. But if you are in a 3.1, like I said, you do have that difference for speed access points. You do have to have that power supply. It's not an option, so you're going to have to buy a power supply. Even by the time you buy this hub, this card reader, and the power supply, you will still have your ports free on your computer to plug in any other external drives, depending on your computer, obviously. So this should be more than adequate instead of buying a non-powered hub, which could actually tear your system down on you. Well, actually, it will over time, depending on what you do. A powered dock that fits on the Mac Mini, like the Quiz Lab, is much more money. And the 3 amp power supply turned out it was not enough to go do everything with, but for what I did do with it, it worked really well without pushing things too far. The problem that I had was I had this webcam that I was showing you guys, and it was one I picked up used, and it was working fine, right? But then all of a sudden I fired up my computer the one time in the morning, and yeah, everything's offline, and my hard drives are going on and off and on and off, and I'm like, what up? Turned out that the camera gave up the ghost and blew. It shorted out, took the hub with it. At least it did not harm my Mac, nor did it harm the SSD and the NVMe drive that was inside the hub, thankfully, so they were fine. So it just took out the hub. And yeah, that's $170 to replace now. I've spent far less, and now I've achieved the ability to have even more USB stuff plugged in at once, including having my card reader and having my drive for my YouTube backups. And I got my ports free on the back of my Mac, so now I have 2 drives hooked up, one on each Thunderbolt port back there. I'm pretty much maxed out, so I like it. It works. Little more desk space is used, but the practicality and the amount of performance extra edge I get, that was worth it. So, and at $44.99 Canadian for this hub, I think it's worth it. There are no reviews on Amazon as of yet for this hub. Mine will be up soon, and I'm going to just give you guys the basic rundown on that on Amazon, and just tell people if they really want to, they can check out my channel for this hub. Just search out the hub on my channel. But I think it's worthwhile buy. I give it a 4 out of 5. Easy. Nothing's perfect, and of course, you know, we should be getting a power supply with this thing, okay? I mean, it doesn't cost much for even a little 3 amp brick. I mean, seriously. Mind you, I got a really super heavy duty one on there, so yeah. But being that it is a powered hub and you must have the power supply, to run things right without destroying your machine, they should be supplying a power supply. So I've got to kind of knock it a little bit for that. Not perfect and no power supply. Also, of course, the write-up on the Amazon page is incorrect for this hub, which is kind of weird. But anyway, it will work on buses below 3.2, so don't worry, you're fine. You can use the Type A adapter, it's fine, no big deal. Now, any adapters that you do need to convert a Type C to a Type A, make sure that they're good quality adapters. Don't buy these things from the dollar store, because these things are garbage. They are charge sync adapters, and I don't even think they would have very much good throughput either, but you know, maybe we'll have to experiment with that. But I know for sure, I've tried it on this and I've tried it on my card reader. It will not work at all, no matter which direction you put the cable in. And the cable is critical when you're using the adapters for drives, that it has to be in the correct direction. Otherwise it gets really super slow, like 32 megabits per second, and you get noise out of your speakers, and that's bad. So you have to make sure. So for some reason, Type C, when you use a conversion adapter, it becomes a polarity issue, either with the data lanes or voltage or both. Not sure what's really going on, but I accept the fact that if it's plugged in correctly, it will work correctly. If you do not, it will not, and there you go. Anyways, I'm out of here, so thanks so much for watching. The review is now done. We're okie dokie, we're good to go. Go check one out if this is something that would meet your requirements, and enjoy and have fun. Just remember that if you do not have a USB 3.2 bus, it will still work, and it will work just dandy fine. You just won't get the benefits of the 3.2 Gen 2 bus if you don't have one, okay? But otherwise, you're fine, but make sure you do get a 3 amp power supply for it that is Type C connection set up, at least to the hub end. Doesn't matter what comes off the brick, but what plugs into the hub has to be Type C. But they do include the cable for connecting to your Mac or your PC or what have you. It is a Type C to Type C connection cable, but it does have the adapter at least for Type C to Type A, which is fantastic. And away you go, rock and roll, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.